Hello everyone, welcome to today's tutorial. On today's tutorial, we're going to be potting a fish gown, the same gown you're seeing on the description box, the same gown you're seeing on the thumbnail. That is what we're going to be potting. And before we start, we're going to deduct the upper part of the gown from the lower parts. The length of the gown we are cutting is 59. We are going to deduct the half length, which is 17, from the 59 to get the. So for the down parts, the length we are working with is 42. So I'm going to mark out the 42 plus 1 inch sewing allowance. 42 plus 1 inch sewing allowance. This is going to be our starting point. And for the waist I'm working with is 42. Let's take our hip measurement. From this, we're going to go down by 9 to get our knee. I'm taking this as the waistline. This is the waistline. From here, we are taking 9 inches for the hip line, and for the knee line we are taking 19 inches. We're taking 19. Then for the full length we are taking 42 plus 1 inch sewing allowance. On this waistline, we'll be taking our waist measurement, which is 42. 42 divided by 4 will give you 10 and a half. 10 and a half. You're going to place it here, plus your 2 inches sewing allowance. On the waistline, we're still going to take the tummy part, because this person, she has tummy, will come down by 3 inches to take the measurements. The measurement on the tummy part is 44. 44 divided by 4 will give us 11, plus 2 inches sewing allowance. On the hip line, the hip we're working with is the 49. What you divide it by 4 to give it 12 1/4. You add 2 inches sewing allowance. Whatever we have here, I have 14 here. I'm going to bring it down to the knee line. I'm going to be deducting 2 inches. 2 inches. Now we're going to connect. Take it down to the knee. And from here, depending on how many inches you want at the down part, you can take whatever you have on your hip. Take whatever you have on your hip, then add 5 inches to it, depending on how full you want it to be at the down parts. For me, I'll be taking 17 inches at the down parts. Then you're going to connect from the knee with a straight. We're going to connect with a straight line. Connect it down. to the length of the skirt. Then on this down part, we are going to get the middle. We are going to get the middle. We are going to find the middle of this. We are going to find the middle of this. And I'm going to go up by 2 inches. Go up by 2 inches. So that the edge will not be too sharp. We are going to connect. It will have a curve at the so that the down part of this skirt will be a little bit curvy instead of it being straight. It will be a little bit curvy at the down part. So this is what we have for the down part. This is what we have for the down part. Now we're going to cut. Okay, before we cut, we're going to take the dart. The dart I'm working with is 10 inches. Divide by 2 will give me 5. And for the length, the dart length is going to be 4 inches for the front. Connect it. On this part, I will take ½ inch. On this part, I will take ½ inch. And I will connect. So let's cut and take the back. So let's cut. With this, we are going to place it at the back parts and cut the back parts. For the back parts, we are going to place the front. Fold your fabric, place the front, place your front parts. Then make sure you add your 1 inch zip allowance. Add your 1 inch zip allowance and cut. On this knee line, I'm going to notch it. I'll open up the zip allowance. Before I open up the zip allowance, let me take the dart. That I'm working with is for the back 4 inches. I'll go down by 5. On the sides, I'll take ½ inch and ½ inch. I'll connect. Open up your zip allowance. So that with the down part. For the upper part, the upper part is going to be a princess dart. And we have taken away the down part, remaining the upper part. So we're going to cut the upper part now. And for the upper part, we're taking 17 inches plus 1 inch sewing allowance for the upper part. 1 inch sewing allowance for the upper part. And you're going to fold with the biggest measurement of the upper body. Our biggest measurement is 42, is 47, which is the bust. So we're going to divide it. That will give us 12. Then add your sewing allowance. For the upper part, the length is 17 inches plus 1 inch sewing allowance, making it 18. This is our starting point. From the shoulder to the bust line, to the chest line, I'll be taking 9 inches for the chest line. The bust point, 12 inches. The under bust, 15 inches, and the full length. So this is our chest line. This is the bust point. This is the under bust. And this is the waist line. This is the shoulder line. To take our shoulder measurement, the shoulder measurement I'm working with is 17 inches divided by 2 will give us 8.5. I'm going to take 1 inch for the shoulder slope. And on this line, I'll bring this line down to the chest line. Take it down to the chest line. For the neck, I'll be taking 5 inches for the neck. 5 inches for the neck. And for the length, I'll be taking 3.5 for the length. Now connect. And I'm going to connect this 1 inch shoulder slope to the neck. This is our shoulder slope. And to determine our armhole curve, I'm going to place my bust measurement here. The bust measurement I'm working with is 47.5 divided by 4 is going to be 12. So I will place 12 here on the chest line. I'll place it on the chest line. Then I'm going to find the midpoints. I'm going to get the midpoints. I'm going to get the midpoint of this. I'm going to get the midpoint of this armhole. What I have is 4.5. And I'll come in by 5 inch. And I'll connect. Connect straight to B. Then to take our darts, the dart I'm working with, the nipple to nipple measurement is 10 inches plus 10 inches divided by 2 will give us 5 plus half inch joining allowance. Going to mark it the same thing down to the underbust and to the waist to connect it. On this bust point, I'll be coming down by 1 inch because I wouldn't want it to be pointy. I'll come down by 1 inch, and on this bust point, I'll go up by 1 inch. Come down on the bust point, come down by 1 inch and go up by 1 inch. All right, to take out our darts, because of the big bust I'm working with, I'll be taking 1.5 on this side, taking out 1.5 on this side, and on this side I'll be taking 1.5. The same thing on the waist, I'll be taking 1.5, and here I'll be taking 1.5. And I'm going to connect. And use your curve and connect. Then, on these points, I'm going to connect this line. I'm going to connect this line. This middle point, I'm going to connect it to the 1 inch that I came up. I came up from the bust point, I came up by 1 inch. So I'm going to connect it. I'm going to connect it. Going to connect it. I'm going to connect it. Then on this point, I'll be coming down by 1 inch. This point, I'll be coming down by 1 inch. And on this point, I'll be going up by 1 inch. And I'm going to connect it to this same point. I'm going to connect it. And on this side, I'm going to connect it. Here's the bust points. I'm going to connect it. Now to take our measurements, the bust point I'm working with is 47.5 divided by 4. is 12 inches, 12 1/4. And I'm going to add my sewing allowance. Depending on what you want, add your sewing allowance. The underbust I'm working with is the underbust I'm working with is 45 divided by 12 will give us, divided by 4 will give us 12 1/4. Will give us 11 1/4. That we are going to take out from the underbust, 1.5 inch, that is 3 inches. When you add it together, that is 3 inches. I'm going to add it here, plus the sewing allowance. On the waistline, the waist I'm working with is 42. Divided by 4 will give us 10.5. I'm going to add the 3 inches I'm going to remove from here, plus the sewing allowance. On this armhole, because we have deducted 2 inches, from here, we're going to add it back. We're going to add it back to avoid shortage. So now I'm going to connect it back. Then connect my armhole. So this is our princess dart bustier. If you have any question, please ask in the comments section. Connect your measurements. Now we are going to cut. When I join it, you see it. This is the dart that I cut off. So when I want to join, because this one is not going to have, I'm not going to pad it. If I'm going to pad it, I will just cut place it, but I'm not. This is how it's going to be. I'll now join it together. To cut the back, the length you are working with is 17 inches plus 1 inch sewing allowance to make it 18 inches. For the back, we are not using a princess dart for the back, but if you like, you can put your princess dart at the back. But I'm not putting any princess darts, just the normal back. We're going to take 1 inch zip allowance. We are taking our shoulder. The shoulder we are working with is 17 inches divided by 2. We give you 8.5. 8.5. I'll mark it here. Then I will take my 1 inch shoulder slope. Then take my armhole, which is 9 inches. For the back, we don't need the underbust and what have you. The only thing we are working with is just our bust points and our waist for the back. For the neck width, for the front, we use 5 inches. So we're still taking 5 inches. And for the down parts, we're going to take 2.5 inches for the back. We're going to connect. Then put my shoulder slope. The bust measurements I'm working with is 47.5. When you divide it by 4, it will give you 12 12 1/4. We're going to be adding our sewing allowance. For the waist I'm working with is 42 divided by 4 will give me 10.5 plus our sewing allowance. I'm going to connect it. Then on this armhole, we're going to find the midpoint and connect. Then, because our back bodies and our front bodies are not equal, and to avoid zip bulge at the back, we're going to come up by 1 inch. We're going to connect back to our measurements. This will eliminate zip bulge at the back, and your dress will be flat at the back. For the darts, we take our dart. The dart I'm working with is 5 inches. On this chest line, I'm going to come down by 1 inch. And on the waist, I'll connect it down to the waist. On the waist, I will take 1/2 inch. On this side, I will take 1/2 inch, and I will connect. So this is what we have. Now let's cut. I'm going to take this armhole to be connect it to the allowance that you added. Make sure you connect it back to the allowance before you cut out. Now you're going to notch your zip allowance and open up here. I'm going to notch my darts so I will know where my dart is. Open it up. So this is what we have. To cut the balloon sleeve, I'll be taking the length. The length for the sleeve is 18 inches plus 1 inch for folding. For elastic, we're going to put elastic. For the sleeve, the person doesn't want it full. For the balloon sleeve, she doesn't want it full. So this method I'm going to use will reduce it. You can also use your slash and spread method to achieve this style. So now I'm going to take the sleeve, the cap height. The cap height is going to be 4 inches. The cap height is 4 inches. And on this cap height, I'm going to measure her round sleeve. Her round sleeve is 17 divided by 2. 17 divided by 2 will give us 8.5. I will place 8.5 here. And I'll add 2 inches sewing allowance. Then I will make a straight line from that point to this beginning point. Take a straight line. Mark a straight line. Then I'm going to get the midpoint of this line. The midpoint is 6.5. 6.5. I'm going to connect it with the down curve and connect the parts. For the down part of the round sleeve is 13 inches. It's 13 inches. For the down part, I'm taking 13 inches divided by 2 will give us 6 inches. But because this is a balloon sleeve, from here, I'm going to connect it down. Because it's a balloon sleeve, and I'm going to use my elastic to gather it. You can still use this method to get what you want for your balloon sleeve. But if you want to make it fuller, you can go with the slash and spread method. But this will still work for you, depending on how full you want it to be. So this is what I have here. The round armhole. Plus our sewing allowance. Now I'm going to cut. Now we're going to cut. With this, I'm going to use it to cut the second part. Use it to cut the second part. To cut the second part of the sleeve. To sew this, I will take it to my sewing machine. I won't be padding this one. To sew it, I will take it to the sewing machine and I will join. Join from the downside with the half-inch sewing allowance that I left. Join to the downside. I will join it. Join this side too. You sew from the down part. Sew from the down part. For the front, I'm going to attach these pleats on it. I'll be attaching these pleats on it. Just take your ruler. mark 1 inch on each side, mark 1 inch, mark 1 inch, if you want to make your box pleats, 1 inch. I've done this once already. I've pinned it down. I'm going to mash it down. I will take this one to this side. Can you see? I will take this one to this side. That's box pleats. Goes inside. Then you mark another 1 inch. Then take it to meet this one. You pleat it. You mark it. Pleat it. I will attach it to the neck of this. And whatever you do on this lining, that is what you're going to do on your, whatever you do on the fabric, that is what you're going to do on your lining. Let me do it and show you. And for the back, I'm going to join the back. I'm going to join the zip allowance, take my darts, I'm going to sew my lining separate, use it to turn the neck of the front and back. Let me sew it and show you.